All right. Welcome back to the Deal Makers Club podcast, where we bring you conversations with entrepreneurs, investors, and business leaders who are building wealth, creating impact, and finding opportunities where others see obstacles. Today's guest is Rich Bleacher, founder of Tristyle, an AI-powered fashion technology platform that is transforming the way consumers shop online through visual try-on technology, fit confidence, and advanced customer insights. I can't wait till we dive into this. Before entering technology startup world, Rich served our nation for 20 years in the United States Air Force, Go Air Force, as a recon navigator, completing an incredible 39 deployments around the globe. Outstanding. Following his military career, he worked on advanced technology initiatives at the Pentagon and Air Force headquarters, helping shape efforts involving artificial intelligence, system integration, and emerging technologies. Rich is also no stranger to real estate investing and investor education, having been actively involved with the Virginia Real Estate Investment Group, where he helped others learn how to build wealth through real estate. What I appreciate most about Rich's journey is the consistent theme through his career: identifying complex problems, serving in the military, creating practical solutions, and turning specialized knowledge into opportunities for others. Rich, welcome to the Deal Makers Club podcast. It is a pleasure, brother.
Yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate being here.
No, this is really a joy for me, really, when I get a chance to talk to real estate investors and founders, but then veteran real estate investors and founders. And so, tell us a little bit about how you got started in real estate, starting from the military. Was there anything leading up to join the military that would have made you think that you would land where you are today?
Absolutely not. And a lot of it just stumbled by happen chance. I've always had a intrigue in real estate investing. Even when I was 16 years old, I was drawing up what a community might look like that we see today, or designing my house with my wife for years. Making little tweaks here and there on a back of a grocery bag. Okay. I still have it. In fact, still have that planned right now in my file cabinet. But really, it came out together when I was trying to learn from Carlton Sheets books, or some of these you pay $99 and learn about real estate investing and realize this isn't working for me. And it wasn't until I was actually trying to sell my house in Georgia when we were moving to the Pentagon, and I just bought it. So I had it for 6 months and I was moving. And so I was upside down, and I'm like, I didn't want to take a loss. And a friend of mine who I knew dabbled in real estate said, hey, you should just sell a lease option. And I'm like, well, how does that work? He explained to me, get $10,000 down, rent it out. And after a year or two, they buy it from you, and you're doing well. And you don't take short-term capital gains or a loss, increase the price modestly. And so I did it. It worked out. I even took back owner financing with a wraparound mortgage. I learned what that was. Same friend. And then he taught me all these other tricks on no money down deals, things like that. And, years to follow, I took full advantage of that, flipping probably nearly 40 homes subject to existing mortgages.
Nice.
I wrote a book, Subject to Secrets, have it copyrighted. So I was teaching seminars, working groups. I was really enjoying it until I learned I was building an army of competition that was taking the deals away from me. I'm like, whoa, what am I doing here? So I put the kibosh to teaching people, and but I was very successful in the real estate investing. I absolutely loved it.
And this was all during active duty?
All active duty, yeah. So
I love it, man.
Fortunately, the Pentagon, they got this thing is like ride share, gotta leave, around 2 or 3 o'clock. And
was it the slug lot, or what they call slug something?
Yeah, so I slugged home and then got into my real estate deals, whatever I needed to do.
No, that's phenomenal. That is phenomenal. And it's so many parallels. I think back to my journey with same thing, finding, and I was at Warner Robins, Georgia, my first duty assignment, used my VA loan, and I joined the Macon RIA. And under William Tingle, he's a big subject to guy there in Macon, Georgia. I was like, what the hell is subject to? And so I learned about it, never implemented that strategy until 2019. I bought my first property in Mobile, Alabama, subject to. But we started, my wife and I, PCS, and we started buying foreclosures with our VA loan. And then we took the leap of faith and did our first true fix and flip in Alexandria outside of Fort Belvoir. And, ever since then, it's been over 10 years now, kind of fixing and flipping virtual in Birmingham, while we were still stationed in Northern Virginia, where it was super expensive, and then eventually got into the multifamily space in Panama City and Alabama for the last 6 years, buying value add apartments with creative financing. We've even bought apartment complexes 100% owner financing, all while active duty, still serving. And how was that for you? 39 deployments to still find the time to build a side hustle, to invest and do those things, all with the backdrop of 39 deployments and serving. What did that look like for you?
Well, so fortunately, those deployments were early in my career, my first 10 years. And I was gone, like I said, a lot. So I was gone 230 days a year. And then, then I started becoming more staff. It was actually down in Warner Robins, Georgia, too. I actually know William Tingle. When him and his friend were just getting started. And it was his friend who gave me all the advice on how to make things work, how to do subject to lease options. And they got into mobile or storage facilities, things like that. So yeah, very small world, very powerful platforms to use. But yeah, so and then there's times where I did have deployments. I just have my wife take care of it, reluctantly, but she was a troop. She learned, and then eventually she ended up learning how that helped her career and where she is today with her own business. So that's everything seems to happen for a reason.
It does. It definitely does. Now, we talk about military, more than most about Forrest's mission success, and you talk a little bit about Forrest, like, it all working kind of for your good. How has failure kind of helped you along the way to where you are now, where, successful real estate investor, the creative financing, and, now going into the startup world, where you see a lot of failure, where most businesses never make it out. How have you kind of adapted along the way, maybe from a mindset, from the skill set as well, too, to kind of be the entrepreneur that you are today? So
I learned avoidance of failure early on as a navigator in the military, in the Air Force. You have a flight plan, then you create all these contingency flight plans in the event something happens, right? You always have backup plans. And so you put that into everything you do. You have your one plan, and then you come up with as many options of how that can be derailed as possible. You identify, how do I overcome that? And even then, there's going to be a slider that comes in that you weren't expecting, but you're prepared for the most part, and that's how I overcome. So to say there's never been failures would be a lie, but you learn from the failures too, and you come back from them, and you just don't make that same failure again. And
most definitely.
So that's how I overcome most of that. And I'm a pretty competitive guy. I see failure as it's not going to happen again, right? I'm going to be successful next time. And as long as you put all the planning in place, you do all your due diligence. Due diligence is huge. In fact, in real estate investing, without due diligence, your likeliness of failure is high. So I always encourage everyone to do due diligence and come up with plans and figure things out. Be one step ahead of everything you're working on, to include the people you're working with.
Most definitely. Now, this was one struggle for me, having an entrepreneurial mindset and still being in the, I would say, the bureaucracy of the machine with the military. How was that kind of organizationally, being in this structured daytime job, and then coming home, with the creative financing, thinking outside the box, and being an entrepreneur? How was that transition for you, kind of back and forth, kind of between those two worlds?
Well, fortunately, I think, I probably would have been diagnosed with ADHD if I was younger. And so my mind's always jumping around 1,000 things a minute. And so everything's always kind of on my mind on some type of loop, if you will. Okay. And so I'm always have it on my mind. Plus, I was able to always have my phone with me. Fortunately, I didn't work too often in a classified environment. So I could always have my phone with me, and that worked out pretty well.
No, most definitely. I think that's one of the things that a lot of veterans, now as I kind of talk about like some of I would say, individuals that are really involved in a lot of the nonprofit supporting veterans in that space, that a lot of veterans struggle leaving that consistency and that structure that we have in the military with the predictability. Like you said, that structure with building out, multiple COAs or courses of actions on to obtain mission success. And when you leave that cold turkey and you come out into the private sector, that a lot of veterans struggle with, finding that next career, finding that identity outside of the service. How's that transition once you decide to kind of hang it up? How's that transition from you? Did you go into entrepreneurship full time at that point?
No, I was picked up by some of the big primes like Raytheon, and
okay.
But the transition wasn't really a transition for me. I was never confined by guardrails. They were more like, I was always the one who would read a new regulation, but also read what's not written in it. And that's why I was always brought in as a problem solver, because I thought beyond what's written and try to figure out how to overcome some of the issues. Because perhaps something that's written is one of the obstacles, right, that you want to overcome. So having that open mind and looking at the entire realm of possibilities is what carried me through the entire effort. I was working 4-star programs as problem solver at the Pentagon. And why? Because I thought outside the box. I thought beyond what's currently written and into what's not written. And so when I was able to do that, I got brought on by, some of the larger defense industry for that very purpose. And I was able to make some really, really cool, let's just say, progress in how we do business in the Department of Defense. So that was a very fun journey.
Most definitely. And I think that's one of the big things that I've seen, that undoubtedly you had to have supportive leadership, because that can be a two-edged sword where, you can have that reign and freedom to go and champion and knock down a lot of barriers and get a lot done. Or you can kind of be put in a corner and told to shut up and color, just depending on the leadership. No, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I would bring my own wrecking ball all the time with me, and I couldn't do it without having leadership support. Whether it be my squadron commander, whether it be, division chief, whether it be, the directorate of operations at the Pentagon, I was always able to get support to do what I needed to do. And that's all I needed was, when a 4-star general says, "What do you need from me?" I said, "All I need is your flag." That's all I needed.
I love it. Go forth and conquer. I love it.
Right.
Now, how has I would say the creative finance, what would you say, kind of having all those deals under your belt, what do you think was your kind of most creative deal or best deal that you put together over the years?
Most creative deal. So I was promoting a lot of, we buy houses in Northern Virginia. Okay. And I had a website set up at the time, and, people just solicit in. But probably the best deal I had was somebody from New Jersey had a condo in Arlington, and I happened to be working up there.
Okay.
And she wanted to meet me for lunch as she was coming down for another meeting. And I did my due diligence. I did the subject to paperwork ahead of time, just in case. And I went to go meet her for lunch and explain how the process works, what I can do for her. And she's like, "I'll give you $1,000 if you can take this off my hands today." It's a 2-bedroom condo in Arlington, right? And I'm like, so she owed like $54,000 on it.
Okay.
And I knew it was worth a lot more than that. So I said, well, I just happen to have the paperwork right here. Let's go over it. So I went over it with her, and we went and found a notary, had everything signed. She gave me $1,000 and walked away. So I immediately terminated the management company that was charging her way too much, and then I got rid of the tenant who wasn't paying her rent, and then I cleaned it up, and then went to the investment group network in the local DC area, and I promoted it there. And immediately I had somebody say, "Hey, I'll offer you $106,000 for it."
Nice. Wow.
So I'm like, great. So this is in 3 weeks' time. I was given $1,000. I made one mortgage payment, I think of, I forgot how much it was, like $500 or something like that. And then I sold it a few weeks later for $106,000. So I would tell my students is, what's your return on investment on that? And they're stumped because I got money up front. And then I made a profit without putting any negative money. So that was a great deal. Another creative one was one up in Lynum, Maryland, where it was in a bankruptcy.
Okay.
And they're foreclosing, and the foreclosure, or they're being evicted out, and they had, like, I forgot what it was, like 5 days. And I'm scrambling. I'm trying to find all this information. And then one piece they didn't tell me when I went to the courthouse is there was a second lien by the city.
Okay.
For back taxes. Why they weren't paying the back taxes, I don't know. But I'm like, confirm them. Hey, you weren't upfront with me on this stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgot about that. So I went and wrote a letter to the city saying, hey, it's in foreclosure. You probably won't see anything. If it gets to that, I'll buy this from you, buy the lien from you for $1,000. And she looked at it and it's like, wow, this is fabulous. I've never seen anything like this, but all right, you got it. So I wrote out a check for $1,000, gave it to her, took over the property subject to, after the judge approved it, because it was in bankruptcy.
Okay.
I went and made amends with the mortgage company to pay back their arrears, which is about $5,000. The residents left, and then I cleaned everything up and ended up selling it probably about 2 months later and made $45,000 on it after all said and done. So that was that was probably the most creative juggling act I ever did, because there's these unknowns I had to uncover due to due diligence, right? And because that was like an additional $20,000 lien, I think, on there.
Okay, wow.
Around there. Yeah, that would have been a huge failure if I didn't uncover that.
No, most definitely. I think that's the thing that, from the two stories you just shared, the big thing that stands out to me was you saw problems. You had ordinary people, busy, career focused, real estate, great markets, sub markets, but they have a problem, and there's no difference in real estate, business, or any endeavor. If you're able to provide value and solve problems from any person or any consumer, the marketplace is going to reward you to the tune of, hey, somebody paying you $1,000 to take away their problem that they're having with the problem tenant and they're living out of state. And so being able to creatively come into a deal and put a deal together is where you make value and you become profitable in the marketplace. So it really stands out to me, just that piece of it, where those limited beliefs that a lot of real estate investors have with starting out and not having a large nest egg or a silver spoon growing up, that you have all these I don't and negative beliefs on what it takes to be successful in real estate. And I think you just showed two perfect examples of just completely crushing that and obliterating that mindset that you have to have this big, large lump sum and down payment to start investing in real estate, which could be no further than the truth.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some that, I took out a loan to get because it's, the numbers worked out for it. But the majority of them were all subject to with little to no money down. Sometimes I throw a couple of grand at them to help them with moving costs or something like that. But a lot of times with people in a problem, they had to leave, they're facing foreclosure. I just helped them out of their problem. But I was one of the people, because I believe in karma. I was one of the people whereby there's a lot of investors that got in trouble because they take on all these properties and then they didn't act on them. They couldn't pay the mortgages. And then the foreclosures went through on the original owner. And he created a mess because now you transferred ownership to a trust, and you just create a big mess. And that made a bad name for investors. I was one of the karma guys. If I was going to follow through, even if I had to use my own money to make sure those mortgages were due, I would pay that just because I'm honorable. And then when I'd sell the property, I'd reach out to the previous owner and show that it was sold, and they can, they don't have a blemish on their records, and they can get on with their life. I got many letters from people like that thanking me later because they're able to buy a house again when they got back on their feet. So that's pretty rewarding.
Most definitely. And I think that's a lot of times, landlords, real estate investors, we get a bad reputation, just because of, the different circumstances, the stories of like predatory landlords. But the big thing is, like, people don't realize, as a real estate investor and as a landlord, like, you have the pleasure and honor of giving someone a safe, quality dwelling house, that they can live in and call their home. That a lot of times, like you said, there's other people who don't necessarily look at it that way, and don't always have the tenants or residents' best interests at heart. And so I think there's a place definitely for the ones that have the integrity and values to come into the real estate space to do business the right way. So that's definitely breath of fresh air, I think, sharing it, because a lot of times we take that for granted, really, when you operate that on a daily basis. But there's, some, unfortunately, that don't have that ethos.
Right.
Now, we talked a lot about the real estate, but now the founder and, AI is really big right now, and, the new company. How was that transition from you from real estate to now, the next endeavor right now with Tristyle? How did that come about?
Right. So so again, a lot of out-of-box thinking, a lot of problem solving in my background. And one day my wife comes home, or she gets in the mail 3 of the same dresses.
Yes.
And I'm like, what the hell are you thinking? Why would you do such a thing? He says, well, one, I hope I fit in, one in case I don't fit into that, and one if I really grew larger than I thought I did. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, and I went to do some research. Is there an app or something out there that does this, that does a virtual try-on? And there's a few out there. I downloaded probably 30 of them on my phone, but all of them were funky, not working right. You had to pay a fee for them. I'm like, there's probably a market for this. And then I realized my background in artificial intelligence, machine learning, metadata development, and I started doing more research, fishing on the patent office, seeing what's out there. And I said, I think there's something here. So I started creating Tristyle, and I found a really, really good development company in India that has been supportive with me. Okay. And they specialize in a lot of artificial intelligence work. And so we created this, and then we interviewed. Again, you always want to interview, you always want to stay ahead. So you interview experts, fashion experts, fit experts. How can I make this better early versus later? And so what I did was, first fashion expert I hired, she's like, who's going to buy it from you? I'm like, retailers, I hope. Well, you need to prove it works in a retail shop. I'm like, well, how do I do that if I don't even have it built? Said, you need to start your own retail shop. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So I saw dollar figures as I using my 401k to do all of this. So I built a high-end professional e-commerce site for women's fashion called Sarah Laval after my daughter. So she's got a lot of student loans she needs to pay off, and I figured this will help her out. And so I developed Tristyle to interface with Sarah Laval, knowing it would have to interface with a WooCommerce or something similar in the future. So this way, I'm already there, right? I don't have to experiment later with a retailer who's going to volunteer. And so we created this, but then, all these other things came up. What about fit? Fit starts with design. Well, how do I make this work with designers? Right now, I'm building it for consumers and retailers. So now a consumer could just look online, see what they want and see what it looks like on them virtually. Works fabulously. But then how does it work with design? So I look back at my metadata knowledge, and I created a database, if you will, for as a consumer continues to purchase, the software learns, right? It learns what sizes they are, learns their buying habits, and the privacy is there. We don't have any disclosure of the actual individual themselves. It's all what am I trying to think of? It's all parametric data that's stored.
Okay.
And the beauty of it is, as we build this, say now a designer creates let's say a new dress, and they get a woman who's a size 4, and they make sure it fits her perfectly, but then they use this archaic grading scale to make all the other sizes. So my system now will have, say, 10,000 people in there, and of the 10,000 people, I want to know what a size 6 is, and you're able to get 100 size 6s, and boom, you take an average of that. Now you have a real data of that size of people today, and then size 8, size 10, size 16. You can do all of that real-time data today. Oh, and it gets better. I want people who tend to purchase this type of dress. Now you narrow it down to those types of people who like that particular dress, and now you build a more marketable solution in your design work. So that's what I'm creating, is a big, pretty much a fit intelligence system to handle the entire fashion ecosystem. And no one's ever approached the entire holistic view of that before.
That is definitely, I see the need 100%. My wife does the same exact thing. They had multiple dresses, and like, I'll send the other 2 back. And a lot of times, even with some of them, they don't even want you to send it back. It's like, hey, we'll give you a refund and you keep it, just because it's too expensive to ship the line back. Most people spend more time planning a vacation than planning what actually happens after a major real estate sale. I'm Johnny Lynum, retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, real estate investor, and financial advisor. I help commercial real estate owners and accredited investors navigate 1031 exchanges, passive income strategies, and long-term wealth planning with institutional level insight. If you're thinking about selling, exchanging, or repositioning capital, let's build a strategy that protects your wealth and creates freedom. Simply visit johnnylynum.com/call to schedule a private strategy session today. How's that evolution, with the creative structure? Are you looking at bringing in private equity to grow the business, or, just kind of keeping it homegrown? How's that looking? How are your thoughts there?
So again, my 401k's been bootstrapping it till this point. I've reached out to some investors. I had an interview last week. It sounded promising. Okay. I got my first client set up, a company called 24/7, and they happen to supply to JCPenney's, Kohl's, Macy's, Nordstrom's, a lot of these big companies. So once I get them on board and show them it works well, the rest will more than likely take it from there. So that's pretty promising.
Yeah, that is super exciting. And, really, that's AI is touching, and technology where it is right now, how it's evolving, is touching every facet of life right now. Where are you at with the viability of AI, like replacing a lot of jobs, and, where we're going to be 3 to 5 years? Kind of what's your outlook right now on that technology, especially with your military background and being in that space for a while now?
So I look at AI like I look at fire. Okay. You could be fearful of fire, or you can learn what fire is and control it. Right. So you can have AI, you can be fearful of it, or you can learn it and find out how you can master it to further yourself more, especially today when most people don't even know what AI is, right? If you're like even in an admin position or some position where you want to move up, you learn AI and show, I can learn this. You got Udemy, you got tons of free classes all over the place.
Yes.
Learn it and then master it, and then, move yourself forward, because if you don't, you won't be as marketable in the future. If you have to, it's just part of that thing. Like you need a driver's license to drive. It used to be horses. Well, if you don't have a driver's license, you're not getting a job, right? So it's we're at a point now where if you don't have an understanding of how to use AI, you're probably going to be limited in what you can do.
No, most definitely. Kind of digging in a little bit, one level deeper on that. What AI opportunities right now do you think entrepreneurs are missing?
Opportunities that they're missing. It's those that you don't know that exist, right? It's like, it's like those that you, like you see somebody selling a widget on a TV ad, and it's like, damn it, I should have thought of that.
Right.
It's those things in AI that are not thought of yet. And there's plenty of them. There's financial AI apps coming up. There's tons, and social interaction AI apps come up. There are so many come up, and they're competitive, but they're all getting traction competitively because of the hype. And I think there's room for much more. It's just a matter of creative thinking to find out what else is needed.
No, I agree wholeheartedly that I think the unknown, we can't be fearful of the unknown right now. We have to embrace it, and we have to seek it out, or we're going to get left behind. And I think that's the thing. You can see the cup is half full, or you can see it as half empty, and kind of roll with it. Kind of bringing these three threads together: your military experience, the real estate investing. Now as a AI technology founder, kind of looking back across all three. What do you feel, or maybe what is the common thread that you see that connects all three of those chapters in your life?
Confidence development, leadership development. Before I even came in the Air Force, even before I was in ROTC, I was not a very self-confident person.
Okay.
I grew up very blue collar. In fact, worse than blue collar. I mean, we were in poverty, and I wanted to make a difference, right? But still, I was apprehensive. I was always, I wanted to make a difference, but I didn't know how. And when I was put in positions where I had to make decisions, important decisions, and I got a pat on the back for making the right decision, that was more of a exponential growth function for me that provided and created more confidence in my ability to make decisions. And even as a navigator, like I said before, you build a flight plan and it works great. All your backups, you had to use half your backup strategies, and it worked like a champ. You made all the right decisions. That builds confidence. And as you build confidence and those practices, you apply them in your everyday life. And that gives you the confidence to move forward in new adventures, and because you know how to do the due diligence, you know how to do the research, you know how to plan. And even something that's brand new, like me, I could barely spell fashion. And here I am in the fashion world, and I'm getting a lot of traction.
No, and I think it's phenomenal, and they kind of, really looking at that journey that you can't, being able to get past the fear and having faith and having that confidence, like it's something to it, because it's something that is extremely fulfilling and at the same time rewarding, knowing that you're out here, you're in the, I forgot what the quote is, with being in the stadium as the gladiator. You're out here fighting the fight, and you're not just kind of sitting on the sideline in the stands and just kind of in retirement, taking the comfortable, not taking risk and just sitting back and maybe going to Starbucks every day and reading the paper. No, you're out here making a difference, making it happen, investing in your next generation and building a legacy, with it at the end of the day.
It's funny you bring that up. I remember going to all these investment working groups all over Northern Virginia and other places I've gone to. And you have all these, a large audience of people who've never done a deal, but they're buying thousands of dollars in books. And it's like,
yes.
And they're always attentive at all these meetings. And they come to me and says, what's your advice? I'm like, get your first deal.
Take action.
as soon as you take that first deal and you make it work, your entire world's going to open up and say, I can do this. But you have to take that leap, take action. And if you don't take that leap, you'll never really get anywhere. You'll always be, I wish I did, or I should have, versus, damn, I'm glad I did.
Yep. And that's success rewards those that move forward and take action at the end of the day. Right. And, what would be that last piece of advice? If you could go back in time, looking at your 18-year self, what would be that piece of advice? I really love that taking action and kind of what you ended with. But what would be the one thing you would tell yourself?
One thing I would tell myself is one, keep my mouth shut when I need to. And additionally, my path, as many times as I didn't like my path, every single turn, every single change, everything I've done brought me to where I am here today. And in hindsight, I wouldn't have changed a thing. So I go back to tell my 18-year-old self, I wouldn't, don't change your course, except keep your mouth shut sometimes when you should. And otherwise, I think the bad with the good actually makes you who you are, right? Yeah. And I tell myself to invest in NVIDIA and a few other good stocks that took off.
Heck yeah. I agree 100%. You're 100% right. Rich, it has been a pleasure, brother, talking with you today and learning a little bit more about your story. And I know our audience is going to be blessed and hopefully motivated to take action and get after their dreams. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is that, successful entrepreneurs, that we're taking action, that we have fears, we don't know it all. Like you said, we're transitioning into fashion. But guess what? We're often the ones that are willing to identify a problem, take action, and continuously adapt as technology and markets evolve. Your story, brother, it demonstrates how leadership, the service, the investing, the innovation can work together to create opportunities, not only for yourself, but for other people in the marketplace that you're solving problems for. And I think for our listeners today, if you'd like to learn more about Rich, Tristyle, and the work that he's doing in AI-powered retail technology, we'll definitely include the links to the show down to his website, so you can definitely stay in touch with Rich. And thank you for tuning in to today's show, the Deals Maker Club podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, please subscribe, leave us a review, share this episode with someone who's looking to build wealth, grow a business, or create their next investment opportunity. Until next time, keep learning, keep investing, and keep making